The year was 1841, and the night mail rattled across the frozen spine of the North. We were guided by two hardened men who thought they knew fear, but they were deeply mistaken. The stillness of the English countryside felt heavy that night, like a held breath waiting to exhale. We passed darkened cottages and fields that smelled of ash, even though no fires burned nearby. U.S. horses knew, before we did, then to burning red lights ignited in the center of the lane. From that split second onward, our simple delivery run became a descent into something that defied Scripture. Before the terror truly begins, please hit that like button and tell us where you are watching. Ha 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 oh! Back then, it was just a tavern. Those stories shared over watery beer by the firelight. Drivers trade legends the way the pious trade verses, and some do it out of sheer boredom. Most men do it to silence the trembling in their hands before a long and dangerous haul. I had been working the Northern Line for 3 years, running from York into the deep valleys. The winding valleys dissected ancient estates, but the route I knew best cut through the Blackthorn Vale. It was a desolate stretch that most other coachmen avoided at all costs, but I never swerved. I needed the wages, and I had grown accustomed to the oppressive quiet lying between the hills. There were 4 of us manning the coach when the nightmare started, and the first held the ribbons. Next to me sat Tom Barlow, my senior, a man with shoulders built exactly like an ox. He wore a faded red scarf and had survived every storm that England could throw at us. He boasted he could smell snow a day in advance, riding behind us on the step. Harris was armed with a brass horn and loaded musket, while inside we carried only 2 souls. A cloth merchant from Leeds and a young woman wrapped in a heavy cloak. Who spoke rarely. She preferred to study the grime on the window pane because winter had arrived early that dark year. By the time we departed the inn, the wind was biting and frost crept over the water. Our team of for Grace stamped nervously as we hitched them for that night. They refused settlement. Stable hands swore they were fit. Yet the animals rolled their eyes white with utter panic. They sheeted away from the open road, as if a predator waited for them in the shadows. Their breath plumbed in the cold, while the air carried a vile odor and a metallic tang. It was not leather or rock, so Tom spat onto the cobblestones and eyed the eastern horizon. He grumbled that it was too dark, noting the moon was up, but the clouds strangled it. He looked at me sideways, asking if I was suggesting we could request the Western Pass. I replied that we carry the Royal Mail, and that they simply will not pause for weather. The station master threatened us over delays. We drive or starve, as Harris checked his powder. Harris shrugged, saying he worked this route 10 years, and bandits are rare these days. Valleys. He had seen nothing worse than a broken wheel, but then he hesitated and spoke once again. He asked if I saw that the innkeeper was desperate to get rid of us. I had seen old Carter rush our mail and check the entryway when the wind rattled latches. When I paid, he whispered that a flock of sheep had vanished near 3 nights running. He claimed there were no tracks or slaughter, only scorched circles on the grass, found by elderly South Asian shepherds. With their Suffolk sheep, circles turned to dust when touched, and he spoke quietly, with eyes darting to other patrons. He acted as if the rumor was a sin, and the image haunted me as we rolled. The initial miles drifted by in the hypnotic rhythm of iron wheels and the sound of hooves. The road from Thistlebridge ran between mossy walls, and the hedges were skeletal stripped by the frost. Distant farmhouse lamps flickered and died as we climbed higher. So I kept my gaze fixed ahead. I watched the pale strip of road cutting through the abyss, under a sky that was starless. It was a solid lit of gray, and Tom sat hunched with hands buried for warmth misting. Eventually he broke the quiet saying, "Carter's father swore he saw a beast on this line, once Patience. He said it was not a dog of earth and walked with a heaviness, trembling the soil. He said it watched from the ridges with eyes like coals and refused to drive after sunset." I said old men's memories twist with time, and my grandfather saw omens in broken twigs today. I tried to sound dismissive, but the memory of the panicked horses in the yard gnawed me. Tom shook his head, saying he heard it from others. It stalks the ancient roads now. It stalks the ones laid before the turnpikes, where the earth remembers all the old blood spilled. The coach jolted as we hit a pothole, causing the African merchant to curse and the African woman gasp. Once the lead mare jerked sideways, as if an invisible hand had slapped her flank in dark. The first anomaly appeared an hour later. A faint luminosity shimmered by the roadside near the summit. It sat fixed low to the grass, vanished behind the brush, then reappeared not swaying like a lamp. The stench in the air turned foul, and Harris tapped the roof, asking if I smelled smoke. We topped the hill, and the veil opened up, revealing a black bowl of barren dead trees. A patch of soil beside the lane, larger than a man, was glowing dull red and black. It did not sparkle like coals. It pulsed, and the grass stalks curled inward, dead and crisp. Tom swore that it was not there Tuesday, claiming the field was green when he drove Fuller. There should be a rider, a cart, or something out there, but there is only the dark. I fought the urge to look back as the road dipped and wind stiffened my frozen fingers. The lamps flickered as we rounded a bend near tall hedges, and then the next sign appeared. We saw a farmhouse that was scorching, with black streaks clawing up the walls just like wounds. The door hung loose, and a bucket lay overturned, with a dark stain spreading out beneath it. Tom whispered that he knew the family. They were good people, and this damage is fresh. Harris commanded us not to stop, swearing he would climb the roof if we dared to pause. I prepared to whip the horses. Then I saw it behind the house where the earth glowed. A massive red ring larger than the others, burned while the fence posts were twisted like wax. Tom breathed that the ring was burning while now. The woman knocked, asking if we were stopping. I shouted no, and we drove, the horses surging forward, eager to escape from that cursed place. We passed a ruined wall and an ancient burial mound, where a jagged shape stood watching us. Slowed as Harris raised his gun, but a gust of wind blew, and the shape dissolved. It was a trick of the mind, and Tom muttered about how easy it is to panic. Then the silence shattered as a sound rolled over the moors, which was low, resonant, and impossible. It wasn't a dog. It was a vibration that rattled my teeth, coming from the trees ahead. The horses froze as Harris whispered that it was not what was animal. That sound. It gets me dead. Something was moving along the hedge heavy enough to shake the ground. So I yelled, "Turn back." The merchant screamed no and forward, but the shadow moved closer. So I hauled on the reins. We began to pivot. And that is when the red eyes appeared directly on the road ahead. They were fixed low and terrifyingly wide apart, glowing with a steady and infernal sort of light. The air seemed to thicken around them, and my hair stood on end as Tom gasped aloud. He said, "It is on the road." Standing right there, so I told Harris to ready guns. Harris said he could not see a body, only the eyes' voice trembling in the cold dark. The eyes lifted, and a shape coalesced in the lantern glow, broad shoulders with head hung low. The fur was darker than the night, and it was huge, spanning the entire road before us. The merchant pounded the roof, asking why, but the woman said, "Something is in the path now." She told him to be quiet if he wanted to live, as the beast took a step. The horses screamed and reared, nearly flipping the carriage. As I, an adult African American, the thing stopped and exhaled a low thumping sound while wisps of smoke rose from its feet. The earth turned black beneath it, as Tom whispered that it burns the ground where it stands. The creature lowered its head, and the gaze felt physical, like a heavy pressure on my mind. It wanted us to look, and Harris asked but to shoot. I said, "Miss, and we die." I said we back up slowly. Tom noted that it did not want to let us pass. I forced the horses backward inch by inch, while the creature watched us from the dark road. When we retreated a safe distance, it moved aside and crashed through the hedge like a ram. The wood snapped, and Tom said, "It is letting us go, or perhaps it is flanking us." We spun the coach as Harris yelled, "Drive!" I snapped the leather, and the team bolted away. We thundered back the way we came, with wheels screaming, while Tom clung tightly to the rail. Harris pointed his musket into the void, and for minutes we ran until we heard it thud. Heavy impacts followed us, not a sprint, but a relentless and ground-shaking trot chasing us down. Tom shouted, "It is following," so I yelled to stay on the main road and straightest line. I glanced back, and a shape rose above the hedges. Red eyes burned, and it was game. We raced past the scorched farm and melted fence, as the landmarks blurred into a dark tunnel. Harris screamed faster because it is close, and the woman hit the roof asking, "Is it behind?" Tom yelled yes and stay down, while the merchant shrieked not to let it catch us now. We hit the rise, and the horses lunged, with lungs heaving as the creature roared pure malice. The sound shook the carriage frame, and the horses panicked, pulling with hysterical strength away from it. Another crash sounded behind us, and Tom yelled, "Look," as we crested the hill at speed. The straight road to Thistlebridge lay ahead, but the creature hit the road behind us with impact. It jarred my spine, and Harris shouted, "It is on the gravel, and it is right here." I whipped the team, the roar came again, and then came the click of a musket hammer. I screamed, "Don't fire!" But Harris yelled he has to, because it is biting the wheels now. The musket shot shattered the night with a boom, and the horses bucked but kept on running. I waited for the crash, but silence followed. Only the wheels, and Harris quavered that it stopped. I looked, and the beast stood far back, a statue in the fading light, watching us go. The road beneath it glowed as we fled, and miles later near the village the horses failed. Harris was rigid, and Tom held the light as we saw the village lamps offering safety. Then the wind shifted, the burning smell returned, and the horses skidded at a small stone bridge. The lead mare refused to cross. Harris asked, "What now?" and Tom pointed to the smashed railing. The rock was scorched, and steam hissed from the water below because it passed this way earlier. The horses panicked, crushing against the pole, and we heard something heavy dragging against stone under us. Tom whispered, "It is underneath." The merchant was silent, and the woman asked, "What do you see?" I said, "It is below us." Then the bridge shook, and dust fell as it hammered arch. Harris said, "If it comes up, we are dead," because the gun then eyes empty. Appeared red, glowing, and hateful eyes appeared through the broken rail, and steam rose from its dark flank. It wasn't chasing us, it had herded us here. I said, "We have to cross now." Tom yelled, "The bridge won't hold. It is cracking," but I snapped the reins and yelled, "Drive." The horses screamed but surged, and as we hit the stones, the bridge groaned under our weight. The creature roared from the ravine with claws scrabbling, but we cleared the span just in time. As the rear wheels hit dirt and the bridge collapsed, a massive crash of stone into the water. I looked back, and the beast fell with the ruin. Dust swallowing, the red eyes glow remaining, was still alive. So Tom ordered, "Don't stop," and we ran for the village lights ahead. The horses were spent and stumbling, but we heard footsteps on the road behind us once again. Harris said, "It is climbing out," dead as we tore into the village and windows opened. We drifted into the inn-yard, screeching to a halt. Tom jumped down, and passengers scrambled out. The woman looked back calm, but pale. Then the creature entered the square and filled the lane. Massive, steaming, and terrifying. It walked into the light, and the villagers froze as it stopped there. It looked at us. The ground blackened under its paws, and the heat was intense and real. It exhaled, then slowly it turned, ignoring us to walk past the well, heading into the north. We watched, and until the red eyes vanished, I whispered, "He's gone." The merchant drank himself into a stupor, while the young woman nodded at me, a silent bond. I didn't sleep that night, and by dawn the scorched trail was famous, though it ended abruptly. Men followed it to a burnt patch of earth where the beast had simply ceased to be. If you pass through Thistlebridge, they still tell the tale of 1841 and the Hellhound mark. Some doubt it, but the earth remembers, and we drivers never question what we saw that night.